So I was just listening to Kim talking about um, the ego and how the ego is like it's not this singular thing. It's like the mechanism that it's like the container that contains all of the separate cells, all of these very, intricate psychological mechanisms. Like, yeah, it does make sense. You can't possibly sort of like be just suddenly, boom, I'm ego free. Like, it just doesn't work like that. There's this gradual process, of deconstructing the ego bit by bit so it has less and less control over us and it has less of an influence. And so it just sort of made me think back to a particular time in my life when I was um, I was very much living through a lot of trauma, and I just couldn't deal. Like I could not deal with the life I had created, and I take full responsibility. I created it. I just let myself be surrounded by so much crap. Like it was not good. In my work situation, in my relationship situations, um, it just became worse and worse. And then the outer world began to sort of reflect that. It all just began to sort of break down where I began to experience, a lot of death. My mother was dying. Um, one of my cats was dying. The other one was dying too, and I had no idea. And I was smoking pot as a way of dealing with everything. Um, and I just hit this point where it was like, I just can't cope with all of this. And I recall making this decision, and it was really quite a conscious decision where I just said, I think I can just get on with life like, kind of robotic like, and I can just leave. I can just leave. I can go and let. I, I think I just thought of it as like, I can let my lower body make all of the decisions. Like, I don't have to make any decisions. I can just basically hand over the reins to, whatever this lower body is. And now I see I was handing over the reins to the ego. And because my ego had so many selves within it that, yeah, I could sort of get by with through life, using all of these different selves to conduct myself. And even in a teaching situation, like I had enough selves to keep a classroom running and to, totally be compassionate towards children and everything, because I had selves that would sort of, that could act in a way that was kind and loving, and it was always coming from. But I mean, I can see it was, selves that were um, feeling like, I was responsible for the well-being of others, and so, I constructed an incredibly complex ego, as most people have, to survive through life. And yeah, I did fine with that. Like, well, I won't say I did fine, but um, I was able to function like with the ego in control, and me, I was out of there, like dissociated. That's the easiest way of describing it. And what happens when we're handing vibrate like when we're allowing these lower vibrations to take control, eventually um, the second law of thermodynamics kicks in and it will crumble. Like that, nothing that is built on these lower foundations can survive. It's just, you look at all of these empires that have collapsed. You look at all of these people who hit rock bottom, be it through drugs, gambling, or just, just life. We all hit this point where it's like, that's it, had enough, no more. And we have to consciously make a decision to choose life. That's the choice is right there before us. Choose life or choose death. And it's one or the other. Death that's the way of the ego, because it's just handing over to unconsciousness. And choosing life is choosing to be conscious in you, how you're facing, let's say it's an illness or some kind of traumatic situation in your family, or difficult work situations, like when you've just got to face up and deal with what's there in front of you. So yeah, just a short video, but I just really wanted to sort of put forward my thoughts on that yeah, the ego. And also, yeah, there was something else Kim said, that the ego, it can't make decisions, but it can make selections. And again, when I look back to that time when I handed over the reins to the ego, it was quite capable of making selections of, like, right, this separate self, that can go in right now, that one can go in next, the fighter, the defender, the empathetic one, the one that takes responsibility, like, the one that gets the shits with everything around, the angry one, like, my ego could make the selections, like, yep, we can use this one, now we can use that, and let's just use a bit of a combo of these two here. And yeah, that's what the ego does. Fascinating mechanism that's in us all. And I want to reiterate that it is a gradual, slow process of deconstructing our egos bit by bit, and really seeing all of those mechanisms that we have created. And we have to just consciously uncreate them one by one with the simple decision: choose life, consciousness, the Christ consciousness and oneness, or choose death. And the way of death is, well, it's not leading to life, that's for sure. Okay, that's all.